Hey everybody. I know it's been a while since I posted a video or even recorded one. It's been August and September have been pretty rough. I've actually had my capacity reduced by about half, so that's been super fun to try and get things done. But something happened this weekend, or I did something this weekend that I really wanted to talk about. And so I'm sitting here. It's 8 o'clock at night. It's about time for me to get ready for bed. But darn it, I'm gonna do a little video. So what was it that I did this weekend? Well, I cast on, and finished knitting a baby sweater. Now, if you are some kind of knitter, you may recognize this baby sweater. But if you are not, and I know this doesn't look much like a sweater right now, this is Elizabeth Zimmerman's Baby Surprise Jacket. I've knit it before, and it is such a fun pattern. I actually have the original, one piece of paper here, and it's so much fun. The reason it's called the Baby Surprise Jacket is because you knit something that looks like this, and then through the wonders of like origami, it turns into a baby sweater. But when you are knitting it, it is absolutely a leap of faith that this will turn out. Now, Elizabeth Zimmerman designed this, back in the 50s or 60s or something like that. And the original pattern, which is what I have here, is pretty non-specific. It includes such instructions as see what you're doing, you're decreasing 2 at each marked stitch. And then you're supposed to continue with that. After 22 decreases, work 3 rows even. Oh no, that's not the one. Oh yes, it is. Then start to increase at the same points by making one on each side of the marked stitch every second row. Work will start to look very odd indeed, but trust me and press on. And then a few instruction rows later, it says, hope you are still with me. Elizabeth Zimmerman really encouraged knitters to just feel, just go forth and knit. And she wrote her patterns that way. Now, since she published this particular version of the pattern, there have been many people who've done like row by row, all the stitch counts, when you're supposed to turn, where you're supposed to do the increases and decreases, that kind of thing. If you buy this pattern today from Schoolhouse Press, you actually get 3 versions of the pattern, one for adults, one for baby, and one for child. They call it the ABC Surprise Jacket. But I really just love knitting from this one. And part of that is because it allows you to make decisions yourself. So when I was knitting this, I had to make decisions about, what row was I going to do the back fullness increases on? Was I going to do it on a right side row or a wrong side row? It says for the buttonholes, place 5 buttonholes evenly across this particular section. Now, does this particular section evenly divide by 6? No, it does not. So you kind of have to make your own decisions there. But every time you do, it becomes more your own. Now, I'm not saying that the people who buy the row by row version and knit the row by row version are doing anything wrong. We're all ending up here, right? We're all ending up with this particular flattened stingray of garter stitch, which will turn into a sweater. But I don't want to knit this one row by row. I love that feeling of faith that I get when I knit from this pattern here. It's just like you trust the process. You know, you stay with Elizabeth Zimmerman, and it doesn't matter which version of the pattern you use, you are going to end up here. And eventually, you are going to end up with the most adorable little baby sweater imaginable. Just like that. And we end up here. Doesn't really matter how we get here, but we end up here. And I think about that in the context of the way life is these days. You know, we have, all kinds of people telling us what we should do and what we should believe. And there are various ways to get to truth, but there's always that central truth, right? The thing that is true. And sometimes people need to be given the path step by step by step, and other people can just take some of the broad strokes of it and follow along, do their own thing, and still reach that truth again themselves. So it's not how we get there, it's that we do get there. I don't know about you, but I've looked at ball band patterns. They have to be really small to fit on a ball band. Some free patterns from, yarn companies are really, really vague. One of the things I've done for friends is take some of these patterns, look at them, and reinterpret them. Like, not change them, but put the instructions in a different way so that it's more understandable, more clear what is meant. Could the person I did that for do it themselves? Someday. Yeah, absolutely, they could. But at that point, they couldn't. Now, maybe it's just the way my brain works, but I can take a look at those really, really, those patterns that lack some of that detail and figure out what's missing. Figure out what is meant, and then put that in a format that other people understand. Does that make me better? No, it absolutely doesn't. But it makes me different, and everybody is different. So as I was sitting here knitting this pattern this weekend, I was thinking a lot about that, about how we get to places and ideas and things like that. And I hope that when you do come across something, and this is not just knitting, it's everything, but when you do come across something that you maybe just not quite sure you understand, or something where you just don't know if that's right or not, that you can then take the time and look at it differently. Talk to people who maybe know a bit more about it, or have a different perspective, and then begin to understand their perspective. Because I think that's so valuable. Because in the end, we're still getting here. It doesn't matter how we get here, but we're still getting here. We're getting to the end of the project. So that's one of the thoughts I was having as I was knitting this. The other thought I was having while I was knitting this is, if you have a knitter in your life and you're having a big event happening in your life, like having a child, perhaps you should mention that event to the knitter in your life so they can decide whether or not they want to make you something. And I say this because we found out late last week that a very good friend just had a baby, and we had no idea that his wife was even pregnant. So I spent 3 days knitting this because I'm a knitter and he's a very good friend of my husband's, and I wanted to make something for him. And now my hands are extremely sore. I am not used to knitting that much that quickly. So that was the other thing I was thinking about. So if you don't happen to be a knitter and you're having something happening in your life and you know that there's a knitter in your life, maybe just mention it before the event. So yes, I spent 3 days knitting a baby sweater because the next time my husband sees this person will be Wednesday. So now I have to finish seaming the sweater and getting it washed and hopefully dried before Wednesday. So that was the other little piece of the thoughts I was having this weekend. I cursed him a couple of times when my hands got really sore. So, but yeah, if you haven't knit a baby surprise jacket yet, do it. And whether you knit it from the row by row instructions or you knit it from Elizabeth Zimmerman's original pattern, doesn't matter. Have fun with it. It is a leap of faith that something that looks like a flattened stingray will end up being the most adorable little sweater. And for those of you who are very observant, you will notice that I am also wearing a similar sweater. I did not knit this one myself, it was knit for me by a friend. But this is the adult surprise jacket, and it is a wonderful fall sweater. So that's my challenge to you. Knit some kind of surprise jacket just for the fun of it. So that's just what I had to say today. I'm not sure that made any sense. I am quite tired. Like I said, the last 2 months have been pretty bad, and I don't know if I'm making any logical sense whatsoever, but I'm going to post it anyway. So thank you again for tuning in to my little stream of consciousness words. See, I'm losing it now. And hopefully it won't take me quite as long to put out the next one. So have a good night, everybody, and we'll see you soon.